Morning, everyone. Shannon with Apogee the Moon. This week, we have an interesting week in the astrology, and we're going to get into it. If I can find my, apparently I didn't open my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, then. So let's get this open. Let's get this shared so we can look at what is going on with the energy this week. And yeah. Interesting times, people. Interesting times. So here we go. All right. Into the breach once more, dear friends. Here we go. So, sorry, feeling a little dramatic today. Little drama. So on April 13th, coming up on Monday, this is like April 12th through the 18th. So on, well, actually, so the 13th is what? What is today? Yeah, 11th, 12th, 13th. Yeah, so the 12th through the 18th, there's no exact aspects on the 12th. Besides the moon moving into Taurus, which then we will have the subsequent first quarter square this coming week of this new moon that has happened in Aries, just FYI. So the sun in sextile with Mars on the 13th, this is going to create a little bit of momentum, a little bit of movement. There's going to be conversations because sextiles are an aspect that kind of act like Venus, right? So it's working with someone, it's relational, it's two people meeting up to have a conversation. So this is on Tuesday the 13th. And so what this can be with the sun in Aries, this can definitely be a very action oriented, right? And especially with Mars. And Mars is in Gemini. So there's going to be a lot of fast conversation, a lot of fast talking, a lot of information that's going to be doled out, or a lot of things that are going to be back and forth on where it is you're going, what it is you're doing, because you have to remember Mars is in Gemini, still where the nodes are, right? It's still in the sign with the North Node. So it's the direction in which we are going, taking action and moving towards. Then on the 14th, we have Venus moving into Taurus. She is done with her Aries transit. I know for some people, Venus in Aries is a little bit of a headache, is a little bit of a shakeup from normal Venus energy. I personally like Venus in Aries because it's like you get what you get, and that's how it is, babe. That's just how it is. So I do like this for, everyone. So I will be talking about that and what that means for you when we get into the Allsignsforecast. On the 15th, we have the sun in sextile with Jupiter. So again, we have working with people, working with, communicating with, talking to, getting things moving. So the sun and Jupiter are at 25 degrees of Aries and Aquarius. So again, these are action-oriented signs. These are masculine signs. Air, communication, fire, action. Okay, this is working with people. So this could see people working with teachers, working with gurus, working on that bigger, broader, more expansive goal of the future that you want to create. Because remember, Jupiter is still in Aquarius. This is where Saturn and Jupiter came together. This is a 20-year cycle. So any aspects made while Jupiter is in Aquarius, this is going to kind of highlight that energy moving forward. And it's expanding and it's evolving and it's moving, right? So there is that. And then on the 16th, we do have the sun in square with Pluto. A lot of people get kind of freaked out when Pluto's in square. It kind of freaks me out a little bit too, because I have this natally and I know how difficult this can be. However, it is very psychological in nature. The fact that the sun is in Aries exalted, Pluto is in Capricorn. So it's those hierarchical structures that we have in our lives, whatevs. Sun in square with Pluto, this is action oriented as well. This is friction. This is arguments, disputes. This is action being taken either by you or you with someone else. Okay. So, I don't mind this as much. I do have this natally, and actually that'll be fun for me coming up. Anyway, so On the 17th, though, we have some really interesting energy, which this is what I'm really excited about. On the 17th and the 18th, we have a lot of Mercury activation, a lot of communication coming in, positive, intense, transformational energy. And we also have on the 18th, we have the sun Cazimi, or Mercury Cazimi the sun. Sorry, I said that backwards. So, right now, Mercury, I don't know if anybody else has noticed, both Mercury and Venus are invisible. We can't see them. They both are moving towards, Venus is already an evening star. However, she's not visible yet. She's not far enough away from the sun to be seen in the sky. Keep an eye out in the western horizon as the sun sets. She will be the brightest thing there, folks. Okay. So keep an eye on that coming up, maybe the end of May, middle of May, somewhere around there. Now, Mercury Cazimi the sun. Mercury right now is being burned by the sun. We can't see it. It's still a morning star, but we can't see Mercury. And in all seriousness, Mercury is, it's how we think, it's how we speak, it's how we communicate, it's our language that we use. And it's in Aries right now. And it's very intense, and it's a lot of anxiousness, a lot of anxiety, a lot of really intense conversations can happen here. Especially with, Mercury coming into that square with Pluto later on in the week. But the Cazimi with the sun, this is beautiful because we're going to get some clarity on something. And this can be something that has to do with the past. This can be very healing for everyone involved and the aha moment, right? Because at the 29th degree of any sign is an interesting degree to look at because it's the last degree of the sign before we move into the next sign. And there's completely different energy that's associated with every sign. So wherever this falls for you, this is at 29 degrees. This is at the very end of Aries. This is the number of not just mastery, but of something of the past, of something that needs to be completed, finalized, or put down and done, right? But it's going to be clear of what needs to be put down, of what needs to be let go. And especially with everything going on and the subsequent new moon that we just had in Aries, and with Venus in square with Pluto, all that energy, you can go to last week's video and watch that. But this is interesting energy because we're going to get clarity on something, especially like I just feel like this is the past and it's something that has maybe haunted us for a while that's being clear now of the action that we need to take to move forward and let go of it, if that makes sense for everyone. So that being said, let's get into all 12 signs. So we're going to start with Aries. And so what we're going to start with is we're going to start with Venus moving out of your sign, Aries, moving into Taurus. She has refreshed you. She has made you beautiful or handsome or whatever you want to say with Venus in Aries. Whatever she's done for you, she's done good. So now Venus is going to move out of your first house into Taurus, into your second house of what it is that you value, the money that you make, the possessions that you have. And you have Uranus here shaking things up, kind of disrupting the status quo of what it is that you value or your sense of worth or your sense of value in life. But with Venus coming in here, Venus is strengthening this part of your chart. It will be a little disruptive because she is going to square Saturn and conjunct Uranus. So there is going to be a little bit of a different flavor to it. But before she moves out of Taurus, she will trine Pluto. So there's good things that can happen with this. And she's going to be visible by then. So there's going to be a lot of really interesting developments in your second house, Aries. So now we're going to talk about April 17th and April 18th, where we have Mercury really being highlighted and the communication that needs to happen around you, right? Because you have Mercury in sextile with Mars, Mercury in sextile with Jupiter, and then you have Mars in trine with Jupiter as well on this same day. And Mercury is in square with Pluto. There's going to be a lot of intense conversation, but it's going to be good, right? The square to Pluto is action. We wouldn't take action if something didn't feel wrong or feel right, or we weren't passionate about it, right? So we could be really feeling very deep, very obsessed, very focused about what it is that we want to do, what it is we want to communicate. And for you, Aries, this is you communicating in a very intense and very profound way of what it is that you want to do going forward. And you yourself are going to be communicating because you have your chart ruler down there in your third house with the North Node. You're talking about what it is you want to do, where you want to go, and how you want it to look. Now, on the following day, we do have Mercury coming into Cazimi with the sun at the 29th degree. This is in your sign. There is something for you that is being highlighted, some way of speaking, some way of thinking, some way of communicating, something maybe even from the past that's coming up for you that needs to be evaluated and needs to be put to bed. Okay, so that's that for Aries rising people. And, you know, with this Cazimi point, there can be a lot of clarity gained. I don't have the time, but I can look at the time. It is at 9:49 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So change that to wherever you are in the world, and you'll get a good understanding of what it is. You can meditate on this. You can move your body and take action, you know, just to kind of move. I would say move your body with this because it is Aries, and Aries is about movement. Aries is about action. I would say move your body if you can, or do a focused meditation, right? Because there needs to be focus, especially with the coming off the square to Pluto. You need to really hone in and focus on what it is that this means specifically for you, Aries. So now for Taurus and for Taurus rising. So we're going to talk about the fact that Venus is moving signs. Woo! She's out of Aries. She's out of Aries, and she's coming through and she's refreshing you, Taurus, right? So if you're a Taurus rising, Taurus sun, or Taurus moon, you have Venus coming through, refreshing you, revitalizing you, and kind of bringing a little bit of that more sensate, sensual kind of energy to you, and alleviating maybe a little bit of that that Uranian energy that you've been facing for the last couple of years. You know, she's going to refresh here. She will conjunct Uranus. She will square Saturn. It's going to happen. But you know what? For now, she's just entering the sign. She's getting in her home. She's, you know, opening up the door, making herself comfortable, getting the food, getting the blanket, getting in the bath maybe. So Taurus, take the time out. Take this time to really get back into your body and really get grounded in who you are, because there's been a lot of shakeups. There's been a lot of crazy things going on for you. So we will move on to the, you know, the 17th and the 18th, where there's a lot of information. There is a lot of, there's a lot of conversation, a lot of behind the scenes. So you have Mercury and the sun still in your 12th house, Taurus. Now, what this means for you is that there's still some things going on behind the scenes, excuse me, you know, that could be to do with money on the home front, things like that. Now, with Mercury, you know, coming into the sextile with Mars and Jupiter, with Mars and Jupiter being in trine, and with Mercury squaring Pluto, this is going to see you having support and being super laser focused about what's going on behind the scenes. And with Mercury coming into that Cazimi point on the following day, there's going to be clarity. You're going to understand where this is coming from, what this is doing, and why you're feeling the way you're feeling and what's going on. So I would definitely say, you know, subsequently at when, you know, yeah. So what this means for you, sorry, I shifted into the following week. I don't know why, you know, because there's going to be, you're going to get clarity here, but I want to forewarn you that the square of this, the second quarter square of this new moon that just happened in your 12th house, next week, something's coming up here, and I don't know, like, we'll get into it when we get there, but I feel like you're going to get clarity, but you also need to understand and get clarity on this first quarter square, on the action that needs to be taken, you know, at home, for you, because the sun is going to move into Taurus shortly after Venus here in the following week, not the 13th through the 18th or anything like that, but it's the following week. But there's definitely some clarity that needs to be had on the home front for you, definitely. So I would say really hone in and really focus on the money, the material possessions, the things that you value, what it is you're doing out in the world, and what you're communicating on the home front, because there's some things that are happening there. And I got to sit with that a little bit more, but that's what I want to say for Taurus. Okay, and now for Gemini and for Gemini rising, we have, so Venus moving into Taurus. This is going from your 11th house to your 12th house. So for you Gemini rising peeps, you know, yeah, she's coming home to roost, but she's also coming through into your 12th house. So it could be maybe, I mean, with Uranus here, like there could be some dreamscapes that kind of pick up and are a little different, weird, unique. I mean, definitely if I were a Gemini rising, I would be keeping a journal of my dreams over the course of this transit, especially when she's conjunct Uranus, just because I have a feeling they can be different, wild, unique, crazy, kind of out there. Now, the Mercury aspects that are happening later in the week, you know, and Mars trine Jupiter, this is happening in your 1st to your 9th house. So there could be some travel that's coming up for you that you're going to visit. Maybe you're going to visit some friends. Like, I think I've been saying this for a couple of weeks. Like, I feel like I repeat myself every week, but it's like there's things that are happening that are going on that are just continuously happening, and like a continuation of the energy up to the culmination point, right? So maybe you really are going to visit friends. Maybe you are taking that trip. Maybe you are, you know, signing on the dotted line to move, right? Because Jupiter does rule your 7th house of contracts. It's in your 9th house of foreign travel, right? Or maybe you're going back to school. Maybe there's something that you needed money for and now it's coming in, it's coming through. Like you're taking the initiative, especially with Mars, you know, coming through and coming through your ascendant, right? With Mercury in a sextile with Mars and in a sextile with Jupiter, and Jupiter and Mars are in trine at the same time. You know what I mean? Like this is great. The only thing that I would say is that with this square, like Mercury is being offered support here, right? So this is your chart ruler making these aspects in your 11th house of the people that you surround yourself with by choice. Now with this square to Pluto though, you know, this has to do with health and wellness or what you're doing on a daily basis. Maybe there's something to do with debt that's been going on with you and it comes to a head, but you have support, right? So that's what I have to say about that. And then on the 18th with Mercury coming into a Cazimi point with the sun, I mean, this is happening in your 11th house. Maybe there's some clarity around friendships that you needed to get. Maybe there's some clarity that you needed to have in terms of communicating something with different people. So there could be some type of clarity that comes, some type of communication that's coming through, because the sun rules your 3rd house of communication and Mercury rules you. There could be some type of communication that you need to have with friends. It's going to clear up some issues. It's going to clear up some things that maybe were not copacetic, right? So that's what I have to say about Gemini rising. So for Cancer and for Cancer rising, Venus moving into Taurus. I mean, Venus is moving into your 11th house, Cancer. Hello. She's moving out of the forthright and direct Aries. She's, you know, coming out of that square point with your ascendant. She's moving into a sextile with your ascendant, into your social groups, into your networks, into the internet friends that you have, social groups that you have, the people that you want to surround yourself with by choice. And she's home, right? You are going to be the life of the party, have, you know, those friends that you want to have, be uplifted and joyful. Might get a little wonky around the time that she conjuncts Uranus in a few weeks, you know, maybe. But it's definitely going to be different and unique and exciting regardless, right? So there's a change for you. She's now in sextile with your ascendant, in trine with your descendant. Things are going to be moving and shaking in terms of the friend groups and the people that you surround yourself with. Now, when it comes to the Mercury energy that's going on, because that's really the big theme of the week, that Mercury is making a lot of aspects in a very short period of time this week. So what's going on with that? Mercury is going to be in sextile with Mars in your 12th house, from your 10th. Mercury is also going to be in sextile with Jupiter in your 8th house, right? So there is, and Mars and Jupiter are going to be in trine. So there's definitely something going on behind the scenes for you in terms of your career. There's going to be some type of communication coming in. Mercury does rule your 12th house of, behind the scenes, what's going on behind the scenes, past lives, where we self-sabotage even. So maybe there could be some communication coming in on what it is that you need to fix going forward, right? Because that's an energy here. But it also rules your 3rd house, right? Because Mercury rules 2 signs in the zodiac. It rules your 12th house of endings, ashrams, retreats, where you go away for solitude and seclusion, where you want to be away from the world. And with the nodes of the moon here, I mean, you're really being drawn into, the stuff behind the scenes and things that are more for spiritual enlightenment anyway. Now, the other thing is that Mercury does rule your 3rd house of communication, how you think, how you speak, how you communicate, short distance travel, siblings. So with Mercury making these aspects, there could be a communication that comes in that has to do with what it is that you're working on in career, because, they are mutually receptive and they're making an exact sextile, right? So, Mars rules Aries, Mercury rules Gemini. There's a conversation there that's happening that I think could be more on the positive side for your career, for what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe there's something that needed to be cleared up from the previous weeks, whatever, that needed to be cleared up. And it's clear now, and you understand, and now you're able to move forward. And then with also the sextile to Jupiter, right? And then Mars and Jupiter being in trine, this is your 6th house of where it is that you're showing up in service. Jupiter rules that. It's in your 8th house of other people's money, how you meet other people, debt, finances, insurances, inheritances. Maybe there's something that's going on here that is, that's still going to be a communication. Maybe there's something that's coming to a close, but it's coming to a close in a satisfactory way for you. Right? Maybe there's a job that you need to get out of. There could be that as well. Now with the Mercury squaring Pluto, this is happening in your 10th house to your 7th house. There could be really intense negotiations going on, about your career, about what you're doing out in the world, about the things that are going on at the top of your chart in partnership with other people. There's definitely some very deep psychological things that are happening with Mercury here. And I really feel like Mercury is very supported with the sextiles from both Mars and Jupiter. And even though there is this square, there is this intensity and there's this gravity, right, to it, this intense focus, this intense conversation that needs to happen. It's going to be beneficial in the long run, I think, for you. So then we do have Mercury coming into an exact cazimi point at 29 degrees of Aries. This is something from the past that's coming up. The 29th degree is definitely, it's a degree not to really say, okay, whatever about, because this is the very last degree of the sign before we hit Taurus, right? The 29th degree is a very, very karmic degree. If anyone has any planets at 29 or 0 degrees, you know what I'm talking about because you feel the intensity of it. It's not that you don't understand what's going on or anything like that. It's that there's something from the past that's coming up for evaluation. And with the sun in, with Mercury in an exact conjunction, exact cazimi point with Mercury, there is something coming up that has to do with your career, with your finances, with communication. So maybe there's something definitely that's coming up for you that has to do with communicating about what it is that you need and also what it is you need for money, what it is that you need from your career, or the finances that you need from your career as well. So it could be that, you know, just to talk about that for a minute. So that's for Cancer and for Cancer rising people. My Leos. So I'm a Leo ascendant, just in case anybody cared. I don't think anybody does, but I just wanted to let you know that I am a Leo ascendant. So anytime we get to Leo, I'm always excited to give myself a reading. I'm just saying, just saying. So for Leo rising, this Venus moving into Taurus and out of Aries is happening from your 9th house to your 10th house. Venus is coming home, right? So that being said, what does this mean for you? So Venus moving into, yeah, that's so Venus moving into your 10th house from your 9th. Venus is coming home. She's happy here, right? So what this means for you is that you're going to get a refreshing taste of what it's like to have Venus in her home sign in your 10th house at the top of your chart, doing what she does best at the top of your chart. The fact that she is here means that there's kind of like this refreshing energy coming through your career, what you're known for, things. If things have been, you know, crazy and chaotic, granted, they're still going to be crazy and chaotic with Uranus there. But what's going to happen is with Venus here, Venus is strong in her home sign. Uranus is kind of in his detriment. So she's here. She's going to be like, this is how it goes. But we do have to remember that there will be a square to Saturn here when she conjuncts Uranus. So while things are going to change, she's no longer in your 9th house, Leo. She is now up in the 10th where she belongs. And so this is going to revitalize what it is that you're doing out in the world. So then we're going to move forward to the Mars and Jupiter trine, the Mercury and Jupiter sextile, Mercury and Mars sextile, and Mercury and Pluto square. All of that is happening on the same day. So what this means is that while Mercury is going to be in a very uncomfortable position, the fact that it's a sign-based trine, depending on if you're a late degree Leo or not, it's going to be in a sign-based trine with your ascendant. So there's going to be a lot of interesting energy going on here. So this is good for you. This is good for communication on this day. Oh, well, yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is great for communication for you, right, Leo? Okay, so I understand what's going on here. For me personally, because I am Leo rising, like I said, but with Mercury here in the 9th house being in sextile with Mars in the 11th, you know, Mars rules your 9th house. Mars rules this house of education, of travel, of worldview, right? Like how you view the world, your dogma, you know, what beliefs that you have about everything around you. So this is really good because they're mutually receptive on this day, exact by the degree, which is amazing for you. And then you also have Mercury being in a sextile with Jupiter on this day. I mean, this is great, right? So you, not only is your fun, the planet that rules your fun, your joy, your creativity, your play, the things that you love to do in your 7th house of contractual obligations with other people, it's in trine with Mars and in sextile with Mercury. So this is a great day for you to communicate something from that higher viewpoint, from that higher vantage point, and understand what it is that's going on with everything in terms of your relationships with other people, talking to other people, educating other people, learning from other people even. So like taking a travel, deciding that you're going to book that trip, right? Like this is a great time for that. And then you know, you do have that square with Pluto, but I mean, Mercury is so supported in this. And the fact that it's in a trine with your ascendant and in a sextile with your descendant, I mean, depending, let's see, this is at 26, 27 degrees. So like anywhere from like, I would say 24 to, well, I mean, 24 to 29 degrees. This is amazing. If you're an ascendant Leo, anywhere from 24 to 29 degrees, go for it. Right? This is for you. Go for the thing, do the thing, or communicate the thing that you need to communicate, right? So then you do have the Mercury in square with Pluto. And so like this could be, maybe there's a really intense conversation that happens, or maybe you're feeling, maybe you're not feeling the greatest, right? Because this is your sixth house. Like something could happen, right? Where you're not feeling the greatest, maybe your mind, but the square is action, right? So it could be frustration. It could be delays. It could be, arguments and disputes. But the way I see this, because of how well Mercury is actually aspected in this ninth house, and the fact that it's Leo rising in trine with your ascendant, I really feel like this is going to have you be laser focused on what it is that you're speaking about, how you're speaking, and very precise and in-depth explanation of what it is that you're going to be talking about on this day. If this day is something that you choose to utilize or do something with, up to you, obviously. I know I actually have something going on this day, and I'm like, wow, I couldn't have picked a better day for this to happen. It was just like, okay, well, let's see. Let's flip through the calendar and see what day would be a good day based on the parameters that I was given. This was it for me. So this is a great day for Leo ascendant people. The following day too, we do have Mercury coming cazimi the sun at 29 degrees in your ninth house. So there is clarity, right? There's something that has been, you, right, Leo, the sun rules you. There's something that you've been mulling over. There's something that's maybe been a little unclear, something that you haven't really understood up to now. And you're getting clarity on this, right? Because with Mercury coming into a cazimi point with the sun, this not only rules your 11th house of the people and the social contracts that you have with others, but it also rules your finances and what you do to make your money. So these two coming together, granted it's happening on a Sunday, but at the same time, this is on the East Coast of the United States that I say this, so like, right, because that's where I live and that's how I look at things. But, anywhere else in the world, I think maybe even in Australia, this will be on a Monday, maybe, I don't know. I'm not good with the whole geographic location kind of thing, unless it's right in front of me. But that being said, your chart ruler is the sun. Mercury, which rules your 11th house of your hopes, your wishes, your dreams, where the North Node is right now, it's still in that sextile with Mars, offering support as well. So this is saying to me that you're going to get a lot of clarity about what's going on in terms of the future, because with the North and South Node there and the eclipses that have been happening and they're going to continue to happen through this year, in that 11th house, there's something that is now clear to you. There's something that's now clear to you based on that 7th house where Mercury went retrograde and was cazimi the sun as well, back in, what was it, January? So there's something that maybe you've been mulling over since then, and now things are clear. You understand, and it's time to get moving. That is for Leo and for Leo rising. For Virgo and for Virgo rising, Venus moving into Taurus is moving, and I didn't move her. Geez, Virgo, you guys skip over you. So Venus moving into Taurus, moving out of your 8th house into your 9th house. This is really good for you. And so the reason that this is really good for you is that Venus might not necessarily be really comfortable in Aries in your 8th house in general, just because this is the house of death, of taxes, of joint finances, of, all that stuff. But now she's in your 9th house and she's at home, right? So this is her home sign. So she's being renewed here, revitalized. She hasn't been here for a while. And now she's coming home, like she's unlocking the door and moving back in, right? So there is that. We do have to watch out for what's coming with, Venus conjunct Uranus. But this is in a trine with your ascendant and a sextile with your descendant, depending on if you're, you're an ascendant or sun or moon, in the early degrees of Virgo. This could be really good for you if you're an early degree Virgo rising, because it'll be disruptive, but in a good way, right? So there is that as well. But she is going to be in square with Saturn here as she traverses this and comes conjunct in, in like a week or two. But it's fine. It's all good. So For you, what that means is the educational pursuits, the travel. I mean, this could be like a spur of the moment trip you decide that you're going to take, and it's going to be wild and you're raring to go, like, let's go. This could also be maybe a spur of the moment educational pursuit, or maybe a spur of the moment, maybe you're going to teach something. Maybe there is something that you decide that, you know what, I know enough about this, I want to teach this. It could be that as well. Moving into this 9th house, the other thing too is going on with Mercury in Aries. Mercury on the 17th, we're going to have Mercury in sextile with both Jupiter and Mars. So it's going to be the focal point of Mars and Jupiter being in trine, and it's really harmonious, really positive. The only like negative I would say for this is the the Pluto square that's going on. However, because Mercury is so supported here by Mars, by Jupiter, and there's sextiles, right, to Mercury at the same day that it is coming into an exact square. And I mean, this is your 5th house. So there could be some very deep, very profound, very healing things that can happen for you in terms of what's going on with your children, because Pluto is in the house of your children, of your fun, of your joy, of your play, right? So there's definitely something that can be very transformational here of hobbies and things that you love to do just because you love to do them. But it's going to be in terms of maybe something needs to be healed here, right? Maybe something, because this is the 8th house and this is the house of trauma, of death, of rebirth, of transformation. Maybe is that there's something that's going on here because on the following day, we do have Mercury coming conjunct the sun. This is your 12th house ruler. So there could be something going on that you're going to gain clarity on through this deep and this profound, experience that you're going to have on this day where, with Mercury in square to Pluto, and then on the following day, you're going to receive that clarity. You're going to have that aha moment. You're going to have that, oh my God, this is it. This is exactly what I've been waiting for, what I've been, hoping for and whatnot. So be cognizant of that. And it is at the 29th degree. And I do want to emphasize that the 29th degree is something from the past coming back, right? But this is a Cazimi point. So what this could mean, this is your chart ruler and this is your 12th house ruler coming conjunct in the 8th house of death, trauma, inheritance, taxes, things like that. And the 29th degree is something from the past. I mean, like there could be a profound healing for you, especially because Chiron is here too, right? Chiron is in Aries and has been traversing Aries. So there's something to do with that 8th house that there's an uncomfortableness, but it's going to be understood because this is your chart ruler with your 12th house ruler of understanding something from the past, something that has come up that is going to be put to bed for the final time, for good, forever, like it's done, okay, at the 29th degree. So that's for Virgo and for Virgo rising. For Libra and for Libra rising, Venus moving into Taurus she's coming home, right? She's your chart ruler and she also rules your 8th house of death, inheritance, trauma, taxes, transformation, that deep, profound psychological transformation. I mean, you have had your 5th house ruler here of really kind of healing through the childhood traumas that, have plagued you for your life, right? Like the 5th house ruler in the 8th, right? Like there's very deep, very profound healing that's going on for your inner child here in this house. And with Venus coming home, she's elevating that, right? Like she's coming home, she's super strong in this sign because it is her sign. And in the 8th house, this can be the healing balm that inner child needs, right? However that looks for you, whether or not it's your child, whether or not it's your inner child, right? Whether or not it's someone else's child. There can be very deep, very profound healing that can happen here. Now, on the 17th, we're going to jump ahead just because there's so many aspects happening on this day. It's kind of hard to not notice how much trouble Mercury's getting in here. Although it's not trouble, I'm saying it's trouble, but it's not trouble. Mercury is going to be in sextile with Mars in Gemini. So this is mutually supportive for your 7th house and your 9th house. Okay. So they are supporting each other. You're learning something from your partner. You're learning something from a contract that is being signed or from a contractual obligation with someone. As that too, you have Jupiter, which rules how you think, how you speak, how you communicate, and your daily routines, right? In sextile with Mercury as well. So Mercury rules both your 12th and your 9th house. So there's something that's definitely some type of contract that's coming around that maybe you have pulled in through your own, your own power, right? Because I mean, Libras are they're interesting. And anyway, I'll get into that on another video someday. Stuff I'm discovering about each of the signs is really interesting. So, but this Mercury is very well supported by Mars, by Jupiter, while it's in square, when it comes into this square with Pluto, right? So there's support here from, 5th house, like there's support here from the 9th house, right? So the inner child, this square is happening in your home. So there's definitely some type of transformation that's going to be happening. Maybe there's a contract that is going to be signed to do with a new piece of property, and it's like literally everything is pointing in this direction, that this is golden, that this is good, that whatever it is, that whatever move, whatever dogma, whatever viewpoint you have on this is going to change via whatever this contract looks like for you. Now, the other thing, with all of this being said, there's going to be some type of clarity that's going to come up for you with Mercury at the Cazimi point with the sun on the following day at 29 degrees of Aries. So the sun is, it's joy, it's light, it's heat. Wherever the sun is, our attention follows, right? It's the biggest object, the brightest object in our sky. It's the reason we have life on this planet. Now, the Cazimi point is at 29 degrees of Aries. This is still in your 7th house. There's some type of contract that has to do with coming back from the past. And especially because Mercury rules your 12th house, like this is really, and the 9th house of your higher viewpoint. There's something here, Libra, that tells me that there's, there's something going on for you. Like, I think that there's some Libras that are going to spontaneously get married on this day. I'm just going to say that. Maybe you're already engaged, or maybe you get engaged, or maybe you decide, you know what, we're just going to tie the knot and not tell anybody. That could be it too. So, this Cazimi point though, too, is something that is from the past, some type of something that you've been thinking about maybe for a while now with these eclipses and with this Mars that have been happening in your 9th house. So, but this is a contractual relationship. And this is something that's going to put you into, like, this is like putting your money where your mouth is, as they say, which is, kind of funny because the sun rules your 11th house of the money that you make from your career. And Mercury is like literally speaking. So, there could be something going on too with that. And with this, there could be definitely some type of contractual agreement that's being negotiated either this weekend or subsequently over the weekend. There's a mulling over of what to do and who to get support from and where the money is going to come from for something that you got going on. That's definitely something that I see for Libra rising people. So, have fun with that. Sounds like a good time to me. So then we have Scorpio and Scorpio rising. So Scorpios, you got Venus moving into her home sign in your 7th house. She's coming home. She's unlocking the door and she's like, honey, I'm home, right? So Venus coming in here is refreshing the 7th house. It's kind of like a breath of fresh air. With Uranus here, Uranus has been kind of shaking things up a little bit, but with Venus coming home, Venus is strong here. Venus is very strong in your 7th house. She rules your 7th house. She's coming home and, she's going to give Uranus the old one too, I think. But, because Uranus isn't very good in Taurus. It kind of wreaks a little more havoc than anything. But with Venus here, Venus is strong, and there could be some some wild things that happen in relationship, or wild contracts, or things that come in out of the blue, you know, as she moves towards Uranus over the coming weeks, and conjuncts. But she is going to be in Saturn, and in Saturn. She's going to be in Saturn. She's going to be in square with Saturn in your 4th house. So it's just something to look out for, that, you know, she's going to be a little bit, you know, Saturn's in its home sign of Aquarius. She's in her home sign of Taurus. So they're kind of, this energy is not, I don't think it's going to be all bad. I think there's going to be some really interesting twists to the 7th house for Scorpio rising people. But then moving on from that, you know, we'll get there when we get there. But you're going to feel the rumblings, right, of that as she enters. Now, on the 17th and the 18th is really kind of the meat and potatoes of the week, just because there's so many aspects being made on, you know, these 2 days that have to do with Mercury, that have to do with communication. There's definitely something going on with Mercury and with the communication that's happening across, I mean, I'm thinking it's across the world. There's going to be some really important communication that's going to be coming out. So on the 17th, we do have Mars and Jupiter in trine with each other from Aquarius to Gemini. But at the same time, we're going to have both of those planets in sextile with Mercury, really focusing in on that 6th house, on your daily routines, on your health, on your wellness, on, you know, what it is that you do on a daily basis. And so what this could mean for you is, with these sextiles, there's support here. So there could be something really intense going on, some really intense communication that is going on with that square to Pluto on this day as well. But it's highly mitigated with the sextiles to Mercury from Mars and from Jupiter. Like, there's definitely, and especially because Mars and Mercury are in what's called a mutual reception, and they're in an exact sextile, which is working with other people, you know, in that 8th house realm of, you know, communication in terms of debt, inheritance, taxes, occult practices, even like why am I drawing a blank? Like what I'm doing right now, astrology, right? Like astrology, tarot, witchcraft, occult practices, things that are taboo, things that are hidden, things that are not necessarily mainstream, right? So there could be conversations going on about that throughout the day on the 17th. And then with Jupiter too, I mean, Jupiter in the 4th house, there could definitely be, you know, some really interesting conversations going on from the home front, you know, from maybe some type of communication that has to do with your sense of value, your sense of self-worth, maybe even material possessions for you, but also in that, from that 5th house realm too, because Jupiter rules both your 2nd house and your 5th house. So there's definitely something that you're going to find of value in conversation on this day that's going to give you kind of that sense of renewed value in terms of what it is that you're doing, what it is that you love to do, the things that you value the most. And then on the following day, when Mercury comes into that Cazimi point, this is really going to hit home, because this is your career, right? Like the sun rules your career, and it's in your 6th house of something that you're doing every single day. With Mercury here, I mean, Mercury rules your 11th house and your 8th house, right? So with the Cazimi point, there could be some real crazy kind of, you know, clarity around what it is that you're doing on a daily basis. And because, like, I just get this sense that because, you know, Venus just moved out of here, but you also have Chiron here, right? So with this Cazimi point, and the Cazimi point being at 29 degrees, this is the very end degrees of the sign. This is something from the past. And to me, this is some type of trauma, some type of wound, some type of you know, something that is like, I don't want to keep using the word traumatic, but that's the word that I have to use, because I can't think of anything right now off the top of my head. But like this Cazimi point for you, especially for Scorpio rising, sun or moon, you know, I mean, this is 6 houses away from your ascendant. and it's in, you know, a sign that is ruled by your chart ruler, and you have your chart ruler in the 8th house right now, right? One of them. So there's definitely some very profound healing that I feel that can happen on this day in terms of having those conversations with people, you know, with people in positions of power and authority, you know, because the sun does rule your 10th house. And so Mercury does rule your 11th house and your 8th house. So there could also be conversations. Maybe you're in the position of power and authority and you're going to have a conversation with someone that you work with or someone that works for you. And it's going to be very profound and very healing for you. So that is for Scorpio and for Scorpio rising. For Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. I love my Saggies, by the way. So for you, Venus is moving out of your 5th house, out of, you know, I mean, out of a sign-based trine with your ascendant and moving into your 6th house. She's coming home, right? So there is that for you right now. Like she is coming home to roost. She's unlocking the door. She's saying, honey, I'm home. Right. And so with this, there's also with Uranus here, she's going to be coming conjunct Uranus. All right. So with Venus moving out of your 5th house, this is Venus kind of highlighting what it is that brings you fun, play, joy, those, you know, those romantic kind of things that you like, the hobbies and things that you love to do just because you love to do them. And she's moving into your, moving into your 6th house of what it is that you're doing on a daily basis, which has been really disruptive over the last few years, just with Uranus here. But Venus is kind of renewing this for you, right? Like she's coming home. She's stronger than Uranus here. Uranus is technically in like detriment or fall position because it's not very strong in the earth signs. And this sign in particular, because he likes disruption and this is a very fixed, very stubborn sign. But you know, she will be squaring Saturn in its home sign from your 3rd house. So there could be some really kind of wonky conversations that happen here too over the coming weeks. But she's home and she's strong and she's going to revitalize and renew what it is that's going on for you in that 6th house. Okay. So we're going to move on to later in the week on the 17th of April. What this means for you with Mars in trine with Jupiter, Mercury in sextile with Jupiter, Mercury in sextile with Mars, and Mercury square Pluto. So all this is happening on the same day. And then the following day, there's a Cazimi point at 29 degrees of Aries for Mercury. So let's break that down, shall we? So first off, Mercury's been traversing your 5th house. So Mercury rules both your 7th and your 10th. Your contractual obligations and the people that you associate with, like via contract, whether or not it's clients, business clients, partners, long-standing partners, you know, marriage partners, things like that. 10th house, what it is you're known for, what you do out in the world, and how people know you, how they know who you are, right? What you do, the legacy that you leave behind. Now, Mercury is in your 5th house of fun, play, joy, the things you love to do because you love to do them. And he's fired up in Aries, right? Like, so there's probably a lot of conversation going on in relationship with other people and with other people out in the public that you're conversing with, that you're talking to. And you've been really fired up about it, right? Because this is in your 5th house. This is in a sign-based trine to your ascendant. You've been very expressive and very vocal over the last weeks with Mercury here. And it's great, right? You're getting stuff done. So that being said, you have a sextile. Mercury is making a sextile to Mars in your 7th house. These two planets are what's called mutually receptive. They're coming exact on this day. And Mars is going to be in trine with Jupiter. So this is like a whirlwind of communication for you for something that you love to do because you love to do it. You're doing it in partnership and you're communicating about it, right? Because this is your chart ruler in your 3rd house. You're focused on communication. You're focused on talking about the things that you want to talk about. You're focused on doing the things that you want to do within your community because you want to do them, right? So with that being said, with Mercury in this, like in between the trine between these two, like exactly, This is great support for Mercury because Mercury is getting a square from Pluto, right? So, well, Mercury is squaring Pluto because, anyway. But what this means is that there can be some really intense conversations around what it is that you value, what it is that brings you value, the money that you make, the money that you're bringing in, but you have support through partnership, you have support through community. So there is something that you're really fired up and you're really passionate about in terms of creative hobbies, creative endeavors. And this could be a moneymaker for you. Like without the squares, there's no friction, there's no heat, there's no fire that gets lit under our asses, under our butts, right? So sorry about that. There's no heat, there's no action that is propelling us forward, that's giving us the momentum that we need to take the action. But with that being said, there are sextiles. Mercury is very supported in what it is that it's doing in that fifth house for you. And on the following day, you're going to have aha moments. You're going to have clarity. You're going to have complete, clear vision about what it is that is going on for you in that fifth house. But also, like there could be something coming up for you from the past because this Cazimi point is happening at 29 degrees, right? So 29 degrees of any sign is definitely something from the past, either the recent past in terms of your your lifetime, or like a past life. I'm learning with Mercury, and I'm gonna say this. I don't think I said this for any other signs. So lucky you, Sag. What this is doing is this is what's called a superior conjunction for Mercury. And what this means is that when Mercury went retrograde and came into the Cazimi point with the sun in your third house of communication, there was something that was going on that was kind of different and unsure because you were revisiting something, you were reevaluating something, you were redoing something. Now that Mercury is now direct, it's traversed the last two signs and we're coming to the end degrees of Aries. There's something here that is where the sun goes, our attention follows. There's light, there's heat, there's joy. There's some type of higher knowledge, some type of higher either educational pursuit or some type of dogma, some type of belief, something that you believe in with the sun ruling your ninth house down in your fifth. It's bringing you passion, it's bringing you joy. Maybe even maybe if some Saggies can be, maybe you're dating a foreigner, maybe this person is someone that's foreign to you that you're dating. But this Cazimi point, what this is doing is this is bringing clarity, this is bringing aha, what you're doing in partnership, what you're doing out in the world. And this is something that is very joyful for you, something that you're very passionate about, something that you're very fired up about, right? Because it is Aries. That being said, at the 29 degree, there's something that you haven't been clear on that you are now going to get clarity on, whether or not it's something to do with the fifth house, whether or not something to do with a hobby, with something that brings you joy, with a lover, or whether or not it's something that you're having an aha moment where you're expressing out what it is that you understand now, right? Like something has now, you've come to a complete understanding of something in your life and it's going to come to fruition, right? So there is that for Sagittarius rising people. For Capricorn rising people, Venus is moving out of your fourth house, Capricorn, into your fifth house of joy, of fun, of play, of self-expression, the things that you do because you love to do them, your children, your hobbies, your lovers, your romantic endeavors, right? And Venus is coming through here. She's coming home. She's opening the door and she's like, hey, baby, what's your sign? Right? So I want to say it that way because, I mean, Capricorns, you guys are definitely going through still that transformation with Pluto still in your sign. You just had this whole last year in 2020 of like these really intense transformations that were going on for you. And now you have Venus coming home to roost. Granted, she's coming home with Uranus, right? She's coming home to find Uranus there. But this can be really good and really exciting. There can be something or someone coming out of the blue that, or something that you're doing that brings you joy that is just out of the blue, and it's like, wow, this is great and amazing, right? So Venus coming here into this sign and traversing here for the next few weeks is going to be really nice for you. It can be a little weird, a little different, you know, because she is going to square Saturn while she conjuncts Uranus here in your fifth, from your second to your fifth. But, you know, we'll get there when we get there. And we'll talk about that as the energy shifts too. But then like the main event of the week is this of coming into this weekend of April 17th and April 18th, where we're going to have Mars in trine with Jupiter from your sixth house to your second house. We're going to have Mercury in sextile with Jupiter from your fourth house to your second house, and in sextile with Mars from your fourth house to your sixth house. And then we're also going to have Mercury in square with Pluto in your first house. So there's definitely something really intense and something very profound that you are going through in terms of, you know, this square that's happening for you in your fourth house. So, but Mercury is highly supported, right? So, I mean, Mercury is in between, exactly in between a trine between Mars and Jupiter, right? So what this is doing and what this is saying to me is that you're coming to some type of understanding on the home front or behind the scenes of what it is that you're coming home to. You're being supported monetarily because you do have Jupiter in your second house. So there could be some resources that are coming in for you that are supporting this home, supporting what's going on. I mean, Mars and Mercury are in what's called a mutual reception, and they're in an exact sextile degree base too, not just sign base, but now it's an exact degree base sextile, and they're what's called mutually supportive. Mars is in Mercury's sign, and Mercury is in Mars' sign. So what this means for you is that there is definitely some support there of what's going on behind the scenes and what you're doing on a daily basis. Maybe you're getting support from your family on what it is that you're doing on a daily basis. And this is really helping alleviate some of those issues and burdens and limitations that have been going on in your second house, and is actually helping you grow that nest egg, or grow that, you know, grow your monetary possessions, or help you understand where it is that you have self-sabotaged in terms of your self-worth and your value and what you bring to value. This can also mean that there's support financially and in your daily routines and from your work and from the money that you make and you bring home yourself to maybe you know, maybe even purchase a new home, or if some you know, Capricorn rising people are looking at purchasing a new home, maybe this is the time where you start looking and you start seeing where you can move to, and what'll be the best location for you to go to. So there is that as well. And then on the following day, on the 18th, we have Mercury coming into the Cazimi point with the sun at 29 degrees of Aries. This is super important. This is happening in your fourth house. So there is definitely something going on with your finances, and with, I mean, the sun rules your ninth house and it's in your fourth house. This is definitely you, you know, coming through and maybe even understanding where it is that you need to move. And actually, no, this is your eighth house ruler. Okay, so eighth house ruler, I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm thinking. Oh, Mercury is your ninth house ruler. I'm sorry. So you have your eighth and your ninth house ruler coming Cazimi, right? And Mercury also rules your sixth house of your job. And so maybe you need to take a trip for work and you're going to be traveling on the company's dime. That could be a thing. You know, just as a general transit, it could be. You know, or it could be hosting a Zoom webinar or something like that. But the Cazimi point, anyway. So the Cazimi point coming into your fourth house at 29 degrees of Aries, what is going on here is there's something from the past that you're going to get clarity on, because the 29th degree of any sign is something from the past, either the recent past, like in the last few months, or past lives, your lifetime, or, you know, something karmic that has come up for you. You know, and cycles and things like that. So maybe there is some clarity of, you know, something that happened back in January when we had Mercury retrograde in in Aquarius, right? Like when the sun when the sun and Mercury had their cazimi point, then it was an inferior cazimi point, which means that Mercury wasn't functioning at its best. It was retrograde, and it was 3 times closer. There was more craziness going on. But now that Mercury is direct, it's moving forward and it's going to cazimi the sun again. There's some clarity that you can have as to what that was about, maybe even what was going on, then to now. Excuse me. And, there could be definitely some clarity going on as to what's going on the home front and what's happening on the home front for you. So that is for Capricorn and Capricorn rising. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, Venus moving into Taurus. Venus is coming out of your 3rd house and moving into your 4th house. She's coming home though, right? So Venus is coming home. She's unlocking the door. And what does she find? She finds Uranus. I don't know. I don't know about that. But anyway, so Venus coming home to roost, right? And I've been saying that for a lot of the signs now. But Venus coming home to her home sign. Granted, it is in square with your ascendant and descendant and in opposition to what it is that you're doing out in the world, but Venus is renewing your home front, right? So she's coming home. She's in the 4th house. Uranus is here. She's going to conjunct Uranus here in a few weeks. She's also going to be squaring Saturn and Jupiter, but we'll get there when we get there. Right now, she's coming home. She's revitalized. She's renewed. She hasn't been here in a while. And so she's kind of renewing this 4th house for you. And we'll talk about the aspects that she makes as we get there. The main event of the week that I really want to talk about is April 17th and April 18th, because we have a lot of Mercury activation going on. So we do have Mars and Jupiter in trine, and in between that trine, we have Mercury in the middle, sextiling both of those planets. So Jupiter is in your sign, Mars is in your 5th house, and Mercury is in your 3rd house of communication. So what does this say, right? Like, what does this say? And at the same time, though, too, Mercury is getting that square from Pluto in the 12th house. So there's definitely some interesting things that are going on here, but we'll talk about the fact that, Mercury is, in either sextile or trine to your ascendant or descendant right now. So this is really good communication for you. This could be, communication on, maybe there's some type of communication that's coming out on a, like a lover, right? Or a hobby, something that you want to do, because you have the North Node here, Aquarius, right? Like there is definitely something with Mars here, and it's a mutual reception. Maybe there's something going on with a child or a sibling, or maybe there's some type of communication that needs to happen with a child or a sibling it's mutually receptive. So what this means is that Mars and Mercury are in each other's signs. They're supporting each other in each other's signs. So there's definitely a lot of fast communication that's going to be happening here. And what this can mean is you yourself are communicating with your child, or maybe you're communicating you yourself, because Jupiter is in your sign. You're communicating in a really big, brand new way what it is that brings you joy, what it is that lights you up, what it is that brings you passion and pleasure and play and fun, and the hobbies that you want to do, that you want to bring to that next level. Because on the following day, and you're going to be intense about it, right? Because we do have that square to Pluto. Like there could definitely be some really intense behind the scenes conversations too about what it is that you're going to do going forward, because Pluto and Mars both rule your 10th house. So there's definitely some stuff going on with that 10th house for you. And so, it's stuff that's gonna shift and move as we progress there. But the cazimi point on the following day, this is the sun. This is your 7th house ruler. And this is in trine with your descendant, right? So this is at 29 degrees. There's definitely something from the past that's coming up in terms of old traumas, old wounds, old fears, because Mercury does rule your 8th house. And Mercury rules your 5th house of fun, play, joy, children, hobbies, things that you love to do because you love to do them, and your expression out in the world, right? Like your self-expression, how you express to other people. So this being said, with this conjunction or this Cazimi point, there's definitely a conversation going on about, you know, what it is that you're transforming through partnership and through maybe other people, that you're coming to a much deeper, much more profound understanding of who you are and what brings you joy and pleasure, right? So that's what that all says to me. This is also transforming the way you're speaking, how you're communicating with people in the world. And so there's an important message that maybe you need to deliver to the people that you care about, right? So that's for Aquarius and Aquarius rising. Last but not least, we have Pisces. So Pisces, Venus is moving out of your second house. She's renewed and been passionate in that second house of helping you with your finances and whatnot. And so she's moving out of your second house. She's moving into your third house. She's coming home to roost, right? And so she's out of that really fiery, direct Aries energy, and she's moving more into an area that she is comfortable in. She can come home. She can put on the warm sweaters and the pretty clothes, and put on the nice comfy things that she likes, and eat the good food and listen to the good music and drink the good wine, or whatever, what have you. So she's coming home to this very sensual, sensate home that she rules. And so this is your third house of how you think, how you speak, how you communicate. And so what this is doing is this is revitalizing how you're communicating with other people. This is, because with Uranus here, it's a little disruptive, and, she is going to conjunct Uranus, but she is definitely a lot stronger in her home sign than Uranus is. So there can definitely be some weird conversations that come out of the blue with this one. But there's also going to be some really interesting energy where, she's going to be square to Saturn. Saturn is also in a home sign for him Saturn is in a home sign for Saturn in Aquarius. And so what this means is that there's going to be a little bit of a fire lit, right, between these two, and they're in their home signs and they're both strong. And Venus is going to be acting out of her normal, Venusian self with Uranus here. But I think this is a good thing. So we do have that, and that's coming up, and that's going to be a change for you. But the important energy of this week that I think is the most important is on the 17th and the 18th of April. So on the 17th, we're going to have Mars in your fourth house in a trine with Jupiter in your 12th house. And on this day, not only is this aspect happening, this beautiful harmonious trine of the planet of action and willpower and the planet of benevolence and joy and, expansion, but it's coming into a set. They're in sextile with Mercury in your second house of your money. This is also where the sun is. And on the following day, there's going to be the Cazimi point at 29 degrees of Aries. Granted, Mercury is in a really weird aspect with Pluto in square with the 11th house, but this Mercury is very supported in Aries. It's very supported by Mars from your fourth house, and it's very supported by Jupiter from your 12th house, right? So you could have the support of maybe something behind the scenes, maybe you're working on something behind the scenes that has to do with your career, and you're not ready to communicate the partnership that's coming in just yet, but you're working on it. And you're not really ready to talk about what's happening on the home front, but you're being supported in the home front too, right? So could definitely be some really intense conversations that come up with your friends group, with your social media, on social media, what have you. Or maybe there's some really profound money that's coming in from that 11th house, from your online business, and it's really giving you a boost here. Now, with the Cazimi point on the following day, on the 18th, this is happening at 29 degrees. This is beautiful. Seriously, if you are thinking about signing a contract to make money, to bring in money that you're going to make, I would say definitely go for it. Just from this, these very supportive behind the scenes in the career and what's going on the home front, there's definitely something really important that's coming up for your evaluation, that you're going to get clarity on, that you're going to be able to do. And this rules your 7th house of contracts and negotiations and agreements and business partners and clients. You might see a spike in your clients, right? With this Cazimi point with the sun, because what is the sun? The sun also rules your 6th house of your health, of your wellness, of your daily routines, of the things that you do and the places that you work, or the place that you work. And so this could also be maybe signing a contract to hire an employee. If you run your own business, maybe you need someone to help you run your business. And so that's what's going on there, right? So that is for Pisces and for Pisces rising. And so I hope that this helped. I hope this was cohesive. I tried to talk fast because there was a lot to cover this week in terms of aspects. And so like, share, subscribe, leave a little heart emoji right down in the bottom with maybe a upside down smiley face if you watched all the way through, just so I know you watched all the way through. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I will definitely see you next week. Have fun.